Okay, so we're going to pick up right where we left off. We're on chapter 4, Lovesick. It's so cute. It's so cute. Do you guys like these books? Let me know in the comments, and I'll get the rest. I think the first one is Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots, I think, if I can remember correctly. It's been a little while. Couple 30 plus years. Yeah, so it's been a little while. All right, but here we go. Chapter 4, Lovesick. For the first time in his life, Eddie kept his eyes on his schoolwork. He didn't actually do much of it, but he kept his eyes on his paper anyways. He didn't want to look up and catch Carrie staring at him again. That's what had happened right in the middle of the science experiment. She had smiled and winked at him. Then she blew him a kiss. Eddie had spilled an entire test tube of salt water in his lap. Then Howie made kissing noises. "Quit it," Eddie warned, "or I'll smack you right across the face." By lunchtime, Eddie was ready to leave school, and Baliey City, too. Melanie grabbed his shoulder. "Looks like you've fallen in love with the smartest girl in class," she teased. "She must not be that smart," Howie interrupted. "Not if she likes Eddie." "That's enough," Eddie spattered. "There is something very fishy about this, I'll say," Melanie laughed. "It's fishy that anyone would bring you red roses and candy kisses." Liza nodded. "All you deserve are thorns and spinach." Eddie turned his back on his friends and hurried to lunch. The whole school had turned against him. Everyone, that is, except Carrie. And that was even worse. Red and pink hearts were still all over the cafeteria. Eddie had already had his fill of Valentine's Day nonsense. He grabbed his tray of a heart-shaped sandwich, a pink frosted cupcake with cherry-flavored juice, and headed for the corner table. He didn't speak when Liza, Howie, and Melanie sat down. Instead, he kept his eyes on the new cook. There was something about her that bothered him. He watched her smile and hand out trays of pink and red goop. But Eddie stopped chewing his heart-shaped sandwich when Ben came through the line. Ben was the biggest bully in the 4th grade. Eddie got some of his best ideas from watching Ben. Eddie couldn't wait to see how Ben handled the new cook. "Why so grumpy?" Mrs. Rosenberg put her hands on her wide waist and laughed. "You need something to sweeten up your insides." Then she pulled a huge cookie from off of a top shelf. It was smothered in icing and little pieces of red candy. Eddie licked his lips as Ben woofed down the cookie. With his hands full, Ben couldn't stop Mrs. Rosenberg from pinning a heart button onto his shirt. "That ought to do the trick," Mrs. Rosenblum said. Oh, I'm sorry, I mispronounced her name. Mrs. Rosenblum said as Ben walked away, still chomping on the cookie. Eddie's eyes widened when he saw the button. It was identical to Carrie's. Eddie smiled when Ben stopped beside Isabel Hart. "Look," Eddie said to his friends, "Ben's going to let Prissy Issy have it." The 4 kids watched, but Ben didn't spit or burp or tease Izzy. Instead, he sat down beside her and shared his cookie. Eddie drummed his fingers on the table. Something was wrong, really wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. And then it came to him. He slapped the table with his hand, sending spoons and forks clattering to the floor. "I've got it," he blurted. "Got what?" Melanie asked. "The chicken pox?" Eddie ignored Melanie. "I've got the answer to everything." "Great," Howie said. "Then you can take my science test for me." "No," Eddie snapped. "I know why Carrie and Ben are acting like lovesick slugs." "Why?" Liza asked. Eddie looked at his friends and kept his voice low. "Everything was normal until yesterday." Nothing is ever normal at Baliey Elementary," Melanie interrupted. Eddie nodded. "But until then, Carrie and Ben were the same old pests." "What are you getting at?" Howie asked. "It's the work of Mrs. Rosenblum," Eddie explained. "She's invaded Baliey Elementary, and she's armed with Love Potion." Well, Chapter 5, Love Potion. Howie choked on his heart-shaped sandwich, and Melanie laughed so hard she spit milk onto the table. Even Liza got caught in a fit of giggles. "There are no such thing as love potions," Melanie told Eddie while she mopped up her milk using a red heart napkin. "Mrs. Rosenblum is just spreading good cheer," Liza said. "There's nothing wrong with being nice." "There is if you don't want to be nice," Eddie snapped. "Mrs. Rosenblum is ruining Baliey Elementary. Everyone is turning into gushy, oogly-eyed, love-struck twerps." "You make Mrs. Rosenblum sound like Cupid," Melanie said. "Ooh." "Who?" Eddie and Liza asked together. Howie pointed to a picture on the wall. Cupid is the fat little baby who shoots arrows at people. Whoever gets hit with the arrow falls in love. Eddie shrugged. Who knows? Maybe she is Cupid. She's not a baby, but you have to admit, she is pretty chubby. That's not nice. Not nice at all. His three friends started laughing again. Eddie glared at them and stood up to leave. You wait and see. Before long, everyone will be a lovey-dovey goody two-shoes, and it'll all be Mrs. Rosenblum's fault. Eddie left his giggling friends and threw his trash in the garbage can. When he turned to leave, his view was blocked by a huge red wall with lacy pockets. He slowly looked up, right into the grinning face of Mrs. Rosenblum. Howdy, Mrs. Rosenblum said. Looks like you've lost your best friend. I bet a good old sugar cookie would fill your day with sunshine. No, thanks, Eddie stuttered and backed away. He bumped right into Carrie. Carrie smiled and batted her eyelashes at Eddie. How about a chocolate kiss, she asked. Eddie looked at Mrs. Rosenblum and at Carrie. Then he did the only thing he could do. He ran. He darted past a very surprised Mrs. Rosenblum. He skidded around a corner and raced back to the classroom as fast as he could. Eddie's heart was still thumping when the rest of the class quietly filed into the third grade room. Melanie whispered to Eddie, Mrs. Jeepers will turn you into bat bait when she finds out you were running in the cafeteria. Howie nodded. I bet Mrs. Rosenblum is telling her how rude you were right now. I wasn't being rude, Eddie argued. I was running for my life. Liza laughed. You were running from a sugar cookie. A cookie filled with love potion, Eddie said. You're going to need some of that love potion to save you from Mrs. Jeepers, Melanie warned. Their teacher didn't allow her students to be rude. The kids got quiet as Mrs. Jeepers came into the room and looked at Eddie. But Mrs. Jeepers didn't flash her eyes at Eddie, and she just rubbed her mysterious brooch like she usually did when she was angry. Instead, she smiled. Her cheeks were flushed rosy red instead of their usual chalk-white color. What's wrong with her? Liza whispered. Do you think she's sick? No one had time to answer because a loud knock at the door interrupted them. Principal Davis opened the door wearing a huge heart pin. He held out a sugar cookie and smiled at Mrs. Jeepers. You forgot your cookie, he said, so I brought it to you. Mrs. Jeepers' face blushed to a deep shade of purple. She took the half-eaten cookie from Principal Davis. Why, thank you, she said. I do love sugar cookies. Principal Davis smiled and waved goodbye. I was happy to bring it. Mrs. Jeepers closed the door and faced her class. What Eddie said made him drop his math book. Mrs. Jeepers was wearing a heart pin, too. 6. Button attack. Don't you guys get it? Eddie yelled. She's taking over our school. Eddie, you have the craziest imagination, Liza told him. Liza, Melanie, Eddie, and Howie were all gathered under their favorite oak tree after school. Melanie agreed. I've heard people say that love is war. It's the attack of the killer buttons, Eddie interrupted. Everyone who wears one and eats a sugar cookie goes love crazy. That's ridiculous, Liza said. Just because Mrs. Jeepers is wearing a heart button is nothing to get excited about. After all, she wears a green brooch every day. But it's not every day that she acts like a lovesick puppy, Eddie pointed out. Howie leaned against the oak tree. She did act stranger than usual. At recess time, she actually was humming a song. It was a love song, Melanie said, and during math, she drew hearts on the board. She's never done that before. See, Eddie yelled. I told you something like this was going to happen, but you wouldn't believe me. We have to do something before it's too late. Hold on just a minute, Melanie said. There's nothing wrong with drawing hearts or humming love songs. The world could probably be a lot better if someone was a little more loving. Melanie is right. Just think what it would be like if everyone loved everyone else, Liza said. Eddie started to say something, but he didn't get the chance. Carrie came up behind him and put her arm over his eyes. Guess who? Carrie said. My worst nightmare, Eddie yelled and pushed Carrie's hands away. Carrie winked and grabbed Eddie's hand. Oh, Eddie, you're so funny. Would you like to walk me home? No, Eddie hollered and pulled away. No, Eddie looked at Howie, Liza, and Melanie. See? Just look what that cook has done. She's taken two perfectly good enemies and spoiled them. Carrie batted her eyelashes at Eddie. We could never be enemies. I like you too much. As a matter of fact, I love... Ah! Eddie screamed. This has gone too far. I've got to do something. Then he ran out of the playground and didn't stop until he was safe at home. Carrie looked at Melanie, Howie, and Liza. He's playing hard to get, Carrie said. I think I'll bake him some sugar cookies. The next morning, Eddie came to school and didn't say a word. He didn't say anything when Howie said hello, and he just put his head down when Carrie offered him a big, fat, red cookie and gave him a new pink notebook. He didn't even comment when Mrs. Jeepers came in wearing a bright red dress with a red rose in her hair. Wow. I saw Principal Davis gave her that rose, Liza whispered. I think they're in love. Mrs. Jeepers has probably been lonely since her husband passed away. Maybe you were right about those buttons and cookies, Howie muttered. Eddie didn't say a word, but he did notice that Mrs. Jeepers was still wearing her red button. Finally, at lunch, Eddie spoke. Whatever happened, don't eat one of those heart cookies or wear one of those buttons. Liza rolled her eyes. You still don't believe that Cupid nonsense, do you? Just look at Mrs. Rosenblum. She looks perfectly innocent. The four kids looked through the open kitchen door. Mrs. Rosenblum was there in a bright red dress with a white apron and a big white hat. She was busy cooking heart-shaped hamburgers on the grill. Every once in a while, she would toss one of the burgers. The hamburgers would swirl through the air, and Mrs. Rosenblum would catch it on a plate. I've never seen Cupid flipping hamburgers before, Melanie said. Maybe she's the first one, Eddie said. After all, Cupids have to eat, too. That's how they get so fat. You're crazy, Liza said. Besides, those cookies that she baked look good. Just look at those yummy red sprinkles on top. I have to get one. Liza stood up to go into the kitchen, and Melanie followed. I'm going to get one of those cute buttons, Melanie added. Eddie shook his head at Howie and took a bite of his heart-shaped hamburger. Someone has to cure Baliey School kids of this love sickness, and it will have to be me. So we're going to end at Chapter 7, Love is War, and that's where we'll pick up.